Titans and Trailblazers is brought to you by the MNC Group.
Welcome to today's episode of Titans and Trailblazers. Today we are going to have a fantastic show. But Titans and Trailblazers is the new in thing on the African continent where we get to profile the lives of people who have done well. Young people, old people, not so old people, in various facets of life. We've talked to people in the academy, professors who are heading faculties of accounting and informatics. We've talked to people who are secretary generals of African marketing confederations. We've talked to CEOs of printing presses. I mean, we've even talked to people who head music ministries in charismatic churches. And I can tell you, every single episode has been totally exhilarating. I'm Professor Robert Ebuinson. Please stay tuned for today's show. It will just be as brilliant as all the others have been. Thank you for watching Titans and Trailblazers. We'll be back again very soon.
Whether you're a wholesaler, retailer, or consumer, MNC Logistics and Trading is your trusted partner in minerals and food commodities trading. Experience the difference with MNC Logistics and Trading for your commodities trading. We operate a well-equipped laboratory that smelts and assays gold to ensure transparent, credible, and reliable minerals transactions. Our general food commodity market deals with imports and exports of food products such as rice, sugar, and grains. We pride ourselves on delivering products that meet the highest standards of quality and taste. With our expertise in international trading and logistics, we bridge customers far and wide. Locate us at number 4 Neosai Interfo Avenue, East Legon, Accra. Call us on 030-299-8246 or visit our website www.mnclogisticsandtrading.com. MNC Logistics and Trading, hub of confidence.
MNC Group is a leading investment holding company with expertise in minerals and food commodity trading, precious minerals refinery, real estate development, and logistics and energy. With individually registered companies, our headquarters is located in Accra, Ghana, with operational offices in Dubai, UAE, Hong Kong, and Guangzhou in China, Johannesburg in South Africa, Virginia in the USA, and Milan, Italy. We connect business markets and drive growth. Trust us to maximize value in every deal. Call us on 0302-551-917 or 0302-551-918 or send us an email mncgroup@mncgroupgh.com. MNC Group, totally reliant.
Welcome back to Titans and Trailblazers, and today my monologue would center on this book, Marketing Communications in Emerging Economies, Volume 1. I edited it with my friend Professor Thomas Dawson, who is doing trailblazing work at WITS in South Africa with Professor Henry Boateng, Dr. Albert Anani Bosman, Dr. Keges, and Dr. Gujral, who is based in India. And this is an edited volume we put together because we were convinced that there's an urgent need to understand marketing communication issues from emerging economic context. I mean, not because marketing communication itself is new, but we thought that, look, from the standpoint of emerging economic context, there are certain nuances that make it imperative for us to take perspectives on what will work, what is not working, and how we can find a good way forward. And again, we argue that marketing communications encompasses all communications between an organization or a brand and its target audiences, directly or indirectly. And many options exist that play different roles in the achievement of marketing communication objectives. Now, with the explosion of digital media, the options have exploded even more. Now, marketing communications itself is part of what we call the traditional or the extended marketing mix. So, for marketing to succeed, you need excellent products, you need good pricing, you need good fiscal evidence because the place must look right. You need good place management. The aesthetics must be correct. You need good people management. You need good process management. But when all these things are handled, you also need to communicate right. And that's where marketing communications kicks in. Now, as a professor of marketing, I cut my teeth in advertising in 1998. So I'm a marketing communications boy. And so in the 25 plus years I've been in marketing, both as a practitioner, consultant, academic teacher, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to marketing communications. So it's important to understand why this book is an absolute game changer for practitioners, for academics, and even for policymakers. Look, when it comes to nation branding, for instance, I've been a long-time advocate of the fact that Africa needs to take its nation branding much more seriously than it currently takes it. Because if you take the 52, 53, 54 countries in Africa today, I don't think even up to 15 have conscientious nation branding programs. And at the heart of every good nation branding program is a solid marketing communications routine. It's not even a debate. So what did we do in this book? In the chapter 1, we set the scene for the book by introducing readers to marketing communications, especially from an emerging economy standpoint. And then in chapter 2, my good friend, Professor Thomas Dawson, discusses customer value and marketing communications. In chapter 3, another WITS professor, Emmanuel Silva Quay, also discusses cultural values and marketing communications in emerging markets. Now, with Thomas's chapter in chapter 2, what he sought to do was to do a deep dive into the core purpose of communication in marketing, which is creating customer value. Look, communication is not about deceiving people. I've always said that, look, when you're doing marketing communications right, you've done a careful ascertainment of what the issues are. You've done a careful ascertainment of what constitutes value to the customers you want to serve. You've done a careful ascertainment of whether or not the company or institution that's going to provide these products and services has factored the insight from what the customers want into the fashioning of the product or service, and therefore you are going to deliver a value-laden product or service to that consumer. If that's all given, then marketing communications cannot be deceptive. It has to do with telling the consumer exactly what constitutes value in the product offering, and then when they are buying it, they are safe, knowing that the communication was not misleading. So in chapter 2, what Thomas does is that he tries to explain again that creating customer value is at the heart of excellent marketing communications. And he makes a persuasive case that in emerging economies, value creation must be context sensitive, must be cost effective, and must be emotionally resonant. Emotionally resonant is key. I remember when I was working advertising, sometimes we will get marketing communications that's been prepared from outside Ghana because maybe we are handling a multinational brand. But when you take the elements of the marketing communications, culturally, it's not resonant. Emotionally, it's not resonant. So in several instances, we ask permissions from the brand owner to create context-specific and context-nuanced marketing communications to promote that particular product or service in Ghana, because then we'll create better emotional connections and then the messages will land better. So this chapter is very crucial. And it's so relevant for businesses that are trying to move beyond transactional messaging to build enduring relationships with customers who are often more discerning than marketers assume. It is what it is. So that's chapter 2. Now in chapter 3, Emmanuel Silva-Kwe is looking at how culture and communication must come together to deliver value again. Now this chapter, I promise you, is a master class in cross-cultural marketing, because it shows how national culture shapes customer expectations, message interpretation, and builds brand trust. Now, it falls on the classic Hofstede cultural framework and cultural dimensions, and then blends it with African contextual insights. So what Emmanuel Silva-Kwe tries to do is that he demonstrates that effective communication is cultural fluency in action. So he uses case examples to show us how this thesis works in the African context, and argues that for multinational companies looking to localize their communications for an African context, you need to read this chapter, because you do better when you understand the interplay between culture and communication efficacy. In chapter 4, Nino Kwe, who is a PhD student of Professor Thomas and endorsing adverts, co-authors a chapter with his supervisor that is entitled Integrated Marketing Communications, a Bibliometric Review. And in this chapter, they do a certain empirical review of IMC scholarship, which is Integrated Marketing Communications. And then they've mapped out what has been done, what has not been done, and where we should be going in terms of looking for new knowledge to push the integrated marketing communications theory and agenda forward. Now, they argue in their chapter that many IMC models still remain rooted in developed economies, and emerging market IMC issues are under-theorized. So they are saying that there should be more indigenous models built on local data, built on local markets, built on local insights. And that's how we'll be able to push the IMC theoretical agenda forward, by theorizing from indigenous context. In chapter 5, Albert and Takalani looked at public relations and integrated marketing communications and how that factors in the IMC mix. In chapter 6, there's a discussion around brand hate and how understanding negative brand sentiments is also important for astute brand management. In chapter 7, I co-authored a chapter with my mentee, Dr. Isaac Kofi, in trying to understand how CSR communication was used during the COVID-19 menace, especially from a Ghanaian context. In chapter 8, I co-authored an article with my PhD student, Dr. Maulolo, looking at visual pollution from an outdoor advertising perspective. In chapter 9, we look at radio advertising and customer purchase intentions. Chapter 10 focuses on the digital revolution from technology and communication perspectives. Look, you need to get a copy of this book, because whether you are theorizing marketing communications, you're a policy maker, or you are looking to improve marketing communications at firm level, this is the book for you. The book lays the groundwork for a decolonized, localized, and culturally fluent perspective on marketing communication success from an emerging economic context. Go out, order a copy, buy it now. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with more of Titans and Trailblazers.
MGL Logistics and Supply is your trusted partner, providing seamless solutions for all your procurement needs. From sourcing products to managing imports and exports, we ensure smooth and efficient transactions every step of the way. Whether you require goods from across the globe or need assistance in exporting your products to international markets, we got you covered. General trading is at the heart of our expertise. We specialize in a wide range of products, catering to various industries and markets. As a trusted dealership in building materials, we provide high-quality products that meet the demands of our construction projects. Additionally, we act as manufacturers' representatives, connecting producers with distributors. Our expertise in logistics is the backbone of our operations. We plan and execute transportation and delivery of goods, ensuring they reach their destination on time and in optimal condition. MGO Logistics and Supply, guaranteed satisfaction.
Finding the ideal property shouldn't be a daunting task. With MNC Properties, property sales, rentals, and management is a walk in the park. We believe everyone deserves a place to call home. That's why we specialize in providing affordable housing options under our flagship project, Fresh Property Joy, specifically designed for low and medium income earners. Our range of customizable homes includes 2 to 3 bedroom standard and executive options, all meticulously crafted using innovative interlocking brick technology. We offer flexible payment options tailored to your individual needs, plus litigation-free lands in vibrant and upscale communities that presents the perfect opportunity to build your dream home. We are committed to making affordable housing a reality. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or invest, we've got you covered. Our service team is ready to assist you on 0302 551 917. MNC Properties, choice of class.
The National Sanitation Day is with us again. The Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, in collaboration with the Jospon Group of Companies, organized the National Sanitation Day, and this is going to be held every first Saturday of the month. And I appeal to our chiefs and traditional leaders to join this project. As you already are aware, our traditional leaders are the custodians of the land, and when they are part of this project, is going to urge the citizenry to also take up the mantle of keeping the environment clean. Also, we appeal to the various leaders, the Market Women Association, the Queen Mothers Association, the GPRTU, the ProTour, that everybody should come on board to help clean our environment and make sure that we live in a healthy lifestyle. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Titans and Trailblazers, and today we are going to school. We are going to learn some history, relearn some things, unlearn some things, and get to the root of things that will amaze all of us on this fantastic show. Today we have the pleasure of hosting Kweku Daku Ankra, who I've been following for a while now because he's full of historical wisdom. So today we want to find out the history behind the man who shares history. Uncle Kweku, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Please, where were you born? Where have you come from? Where are you now? Where are you going?
Okay. So I'm Kweku Daku Ankra, as you said. My dad is a Gan, but the coastal fishing community early in 1800s there, they came to settle at Anamabu, and then they integrated into the Anamabu community. My great-great-grandfather was called Ni Kweku Ankra. Ni Kweku Ankra. He was the man who gave the land to the Tabon people, the Afro-Brazilians, when they returned from Brazil in the 1840s. He gave them the land. He's the same man who went to Awudome, and when he was returning, he returned with a lot of people from Awudome during the Creepy War, and he settled them at Accra near Kaneshi. And the place of, because he brought the people from Awudome, the place is called Awudome, which is the Awudome estate, and then the cemetery, That same man was being also chased by the both the English and the Dutch for his businesses in slavery. So as a result, they bombed his house at Accra Central, and then he proceeded to come and settle under the light when the first lamp was made at the near place close to Awudomi, which is now called Kanieshi, which is under the light. So that's where,
Okay.
So the chief of Kanieshi, for example, is also an Ankara in lineage. So that's how my people, because of fishing, my great grandfather, they moved from Winneba
to. So they are Ankara still.
Yeah, they are Ankara. They are Otubrohum. They are originally Otubrohum.
Okay.
And we have there's a stool there at Otubrohum, which is for the Ankara Mancha family.
That's correct.
So that is there. So Ajabin Ankara, who became a chief and had his own in-house stool as well as the Otubrohum. So we are part of my ancestry on my father's side. Is from that side to Anumabo. So the family at Otubrohum knows that some of their members are at Anumabo. And then on my mother's side, I'm a gardener. So through Robert Kwikwata Gardner, former UNESCO, First African District. So that is my ancestry. And I was born at Anumabo.
Really?
And I schooled there at Anumabo until I went to Adisade College.
Correct.
From Adisade College, I came to Legon. Then I to GIG.
Okay.
I also did law.
Okay.
And I proceeded back to Institute of African Studies, where I had my master's and also having my PhD.
You are pursuing your PhD now.
Yeah. In fact, I'm about to finish already.
Okay.
So that is it.
Interesting. So I'm Hinson, but my mother is Gan. She's a coalman. So I grew up in Osu. And I was at a place called Osu CDC, which is Cafe de Coleman.
Yeah.
So I've come to understand there are Comans who are also Akans and there are Comans who are Gans, or?
Yeah, so originally the Comans were Fantis.
They were
Fantis. So, because as I said, when the capital, some of these names move in between the coastal communities because of first, the fishing business sent a lot of the Fantis to Accra, which changes the social relations within Accra in terms of even residential system of settlement and so on. So the Fanti society had impact on the Gan society, just as the Akomus had impact on the Gan society. So the Gan society was a crucible. People like the fluidity of identity within the Gan settlement is as a result of the Akans coming in to settle in Accra under the principles of Ablekuma Abakuma War. Let May strangers live among us. So that was the principle of the Gan. So they opened up for outsiders to come in to help with the society.
Interesting.
So that was why you see some Akan names, people from Adansi, people from Achem, people from Kou, all of them coming in. So you see it in the Gan naming system that some of them have some rich Akan naming system within Gan society and still maintaining to be Gans. So that's why you see it in that order.
But there's also Anglicization of names, isn't there?
Yeah, the Anglicization of the names had come as a result of colonial education, missionary education, naming system. When people go to give birth and their children are renamed, the registry. So instead of identifying their local name, sometimes it is very difficult to write how the name sounds. So they look at the nearest name that is quite close to how it sounds to their ears. So, for example, when Kwamankra went to school and said he's called Kwamina Ifua, if you read Kesiri Efo's book, Africa Unbound, it is right there. He said that when his ancestor Ifua went to school, the white man asked him, what's the name? He said Ifua. He said, oh, Eford. And he write the name Eford. So Ifua, which means fork, has now become Eford.
And Hinson is what?
So Hinson is Ohininiba like that. So became Ohini. So Hini became Hinson and so on. So it depends upon how the name is really sounded in the other. So somebody is called Akroma, you became Nkroma. Somebody is called Akroma or Eagle, you say Ogle. So Vanderpoy Ogle and so on. So the names continued to, if it's Kome, it became Kome. So it's COCOMMEY instead of KOME.
Brilliant.
That sort of thing. So if it is Techi, when it comes to Accra, it becomes Taki. And you see the way it is spoiled. If it is Yaboy, it becomes Yaboy. So you see how some of these names from even within the locales could even change in the names in pronunciation.
Absolutely.
So if it is Asali, you say Ashali, even within Ga.
Yes.
So how much more white person who is also trying to kind of engage in your name?
So if you take a beautiful country called Ghana and you look at our political journey, How would you describe a political journey from pre-independence up to today?
Yeah, so from pre-independence, we see that you look at the social and political systems,
Correct.
which was basically chieftaincy.
Correct.
And the chieftaincy actually consisted of the centralized system where we have the chief and or a king in that centralized state as a leader. And then we also have the acephalous societies where it is non-centralized. And when you want to, and even today, if you want to see a state which was originally non-centralized acephalous, that is where you have the Tendanes in the north, which is the earth priests. And then when you come to the local communities, they have it in the form of Asasiura. And among the guys was the Wulumel. So some of these theocratic societies that has evolved into a centralized society were all originally some sort of acephalous societies without kinship system. And the kinship system, to a very large extent, had come as a result of the influence of the Akan governance system of centralized system. So you go to the northern regions, for example, back in the day, there were only 3 of them, which was the Moli Dagbani people, which is the Mamprisi, the Dagumbes, as well as the Nanumbes. They had the centralized system of kinship. And then their siblings in the Burkina Faso, which is the Moshi, because Princess Yaniga moved from Mamprisi enclaves to go and marry Rila, and then the son with Drago founded the kingdom of Moshi. So the Moli Dagbanis are 4 in order. Then you also have the Gonjes. The Gonjes also are also centralized. Apart from that, all the other ethnic groups in the northern enclaves were originally non-centralized society, acephalous. However, the policy of indirect rule, which in history we call it Chamberlainite constructivist imperialism, which was introduced that under the double mandate of Lord Lugard, okay, which is started in the Zamfara area and was introduced into the West African British colonies, which is now we call indirect rule, a rule through the chiefs. As a result, the policy was expanded into the Northern Territory after the Northern Territory was annexed through treaties in 1900. And as a result, the introduction of the indirect rule in the Northern region then forced these acephalous societies to be put under the centralized societies for a long time. And over the years, they themselves also, through their own creativity and as a result of the newly independent state, they also try to have their own kinship system. And that also underline some of the ethnic tensions that you see in the northern territory, because some of these non-centralized societies were placed under the centralized societies because they have kinship, and as a result, the British were ruling through these decentralized societies over the non-centralized, whereas even most of these non-centralized societies were Aboriginal or they claim autochthony. That is, they were people who were Aboriginal, they were there, they didn't come from anywhere. However, these centralized societies moved from somewhere and they came to meet them. So the landowners then tend to become slaves or subjects of the migrants. Okay. And this is at the situation we see in the ethnic tensions and continuous ethnic conflicts in the northern territories.
Okay. You know our first president, Kwame Nkrumah?
No.
He's celebrated, he's transformational, he's contentious, and he's everything else. In your opinion, who was Kwame Nkrumah, and how do you think his legacy still shapes some part of Ghanaian politics today?
Yeah, so Nkrumah was the first, our first president, our first prime minister, being a prime minister from 1952 all the way to 1960. Okay, so that is a very long span, and then being the president from the 1960 all the way to 1966. So that is the kind of man who really had impact on our formative state as a nation. And he did also a yeoman's work, starting from how he came into the politics of the country, and how he upstaged others who have already started, which is still at contention, that family members of some of these people who believe they were there before Nkrumah came are now also trying to extol the virtues and the contributions of their forefathers. Indeed. In order to contest the political space with Nkrumah. Indeed. That notwithstanding, Nkrumah was a winner. At the end of the day, he was the one who emerged as our leader from 1951 when the first election was conducted in tandem with the Kusi constitutional reform of 1948.
Correct.
In which made him the prime minister. 54, under the Van Leer constitution, he won again. And then we continued to 56 when the issue of the federalism as well as unitary states, and then the journey towards independence, he also won again in the 56, which makes him a man who is really a political stalwart. In addition, Nkrumah we cannot really circumscribe Nkrumah within only Ghanaian politics.
Correct.
The man is beyond the confines of the borders of Ghana.
Absolutely.
He is an African personality.
Yes.
He is also a global icon because of Pan-Africanism. All over the world till today, people are writing in Latin Americas, in the Europes, in the Americas, everywhere, every year. All what you need is to take your Google, just put in, look at theses that are being written both at undergraduate level and the PhD level, and Nkrumah is still being written, which most of all the other contenders for the nationalism in Ghana, that they don't have that. So for you to place Nkrumah within Ghana, you are delimiting the impact of the man. So Nkrumah is a global icon.
People draw parallels between him and Nelson Mandela in certain respects.
Yes, in contestation, but Nkrumah is beyond Nelson Mandela because Nkrumah's work and the opportunities that he gave to other nationalists from the other countries, including South Africa. Nelson Mandela himself was here. In South Africa, in Zimbabwe, we have Mugabe coming here, marrying a Fanti woman, a Hefron, from Second D, and moving back. Joshua Nkomo was here. Hassan Kumuzu Banda of Malawi, he was here, and he had even a medical practice and had a hospital at Kumasi before he returned back to Malawi to become president. He also opened doors for the African American refugees and people who were ready to come in. So you see W.B. Du Bois coming in as Nkrumah's advisor, the wife Shelley Du Bois helping for the formation of GBC, for example, and many other African American scholars. Okay, Pauli Murray and others were all teaching, not forgetting the poet Maya Angelou, who were all in University of Ghana as a lecturers and contributing to production of knowledge. Indeed. So this is the thing that Nkrumah made Ghana a crucible of intellectual ideas as well.
Of the century.
Yes, so he's not somebody that we use our parochial lenses within our Ghanaian politics to undermine the man's contribution.
So he's a global legend.
He's a global legend. That is without any contestation at all.
Okay. So when you take secondary schools in Ghana, they have long been our national pride.
Yep.
So can you give us a sense of what role the church and secondary, because Infancy, for instance, is Methodist. Wesley Girls is Methodist. So I just want you to give us a sense of what Ghana schools have done in terms of nation building.
Yeah, so one of the things that most people say is that we're talking about modernization.
Correct.
And modernization, we're dealing with issues of urbanization and education.
Correct.
So when education comes in, it gives people opportunity to have those intellectual ideas, production of knowledge, and how we will use that to build our nation. And in so doing, the church became the avenue for that. So the church mission societies, starting with the Methodists as well as the CMS, which is the Church Missionary Society for the Anglicans, and so on. They contributed in the idea of not only spreading the knowledge about the gospel, so we have the Society for Propagation of the Gospel and so on. It was not only about that, it's also about how to train the people to become a very good citizen, as well as the knowledge system they produce within the church, how it will shape them to become the kind of persons they want to be. They call it civilizing missions.
Indeed.
So in a way, trying to craft the African in their mind the way they ought to be, like the way they are. That is the kind of things that went on. And in so doing, the African did not also pander into the way they are. They also learned their ways and added their own indigenous knowledge system, leading to some sort of counter-hegemonic practices where they try to contest some of the ideas of the European with their own idea. Indeed. And then coming out with the best of it. For me, that is the kind of production that went on, that brought the best of the nationalists from the earliest time. So the church then became the breeding ground for some of this contestation of ideas. For example, the formation of Mfantepium, how the early members, John Mensah Saba, Kobina Sechi, and several others that emerged from that church became the early nationalists who were contesting ideas. So you see Kesle Hayford, you see his senior brother Ernest Hayford, and many others from there who were produced by Mfantepium. Then we see Wesley Girls also crafting the women, the best of women. So if you look at the Gold Coast Ladies Club, Cape Coast Ladies Club, which was founded in the 1880s, you see a lot of women produced from the Wesley Girls School, all being part of that Cape Coast Ladies Club, which is not often discussed. And these women play a very serious role in the nationalism discourses of the time. Some of them were married to the leading members of the Aborigines Right Protection Societies, and then other societies that other pressure group or the political nationalist group that also emerged after the ARPS.
President Rawlings went through Achimota School. President Atamus went through Achimota School. Sir Dauda Jawara went through Achimota School. What's special about Achimota School? So
Achimota School was crafted in line with the British boarding system, then collegiate, like in tandem with the some of the classic school like Eton. So they want to produce the best of the African who will be used within the colonial civil service. So one production of some for the church missions activity, others for teaching, and others to become for the Goko civil service. And as a result, that place became a crucible where the best of students were brought in. So if you look at it formation, you have some of the chiefs. Nana Soforiata, for example, of Achimota was under the board. The chief Amono of Anamabu was under the board. So they were all interested in bringing some kind of new sort of
went to
yes, and so on, because his sons, the Nana Soforiata's sons, everyone was there. The Pauli himself too was there, and so many others. So because they knew how they carefully choreographed that school to produce a kind of people which was to be used for national burden around that time, while the church itself was also maintaining the Mfantepium, the St. Augustine's, and then Adisada College and others. So for Achimota, that the reason that you see its production of some of these people is the intention behind the burden of that school as a Prince of Wales College. You know, originally that was the name before it became Achimota College, because they were doing it to create a kind of education, co-ed education, which was in tandem with what is in back home,
with the best
in
back
England.
Home. I see. That's very interesting. So we have history as a sense of looking back, but history's biggest utility for me is a way of helping you to predict the future as well, because if you understand where you've come from, you wouldn't know where you are going. From a political history perspective, what is happening now, which seems to be a mirror of what has happened in the past, and what has happened now, and which seems to be building from what might have happened in the past in terms of these Dankwa Buzia traditions, Nkrumah's traditions, and the sort of Rawlings tradition, if you like. What's going on in terms of what happened then and what's happening now?
So most of the time, before I get there, most of the time we look at only the political history.
Correct.
And as you said, history is about the past and the present. But it is more than that, you see. Back in the day, people have looked at history of personalities, and then also recounting of narratives, and then the dates and so on, without looking at policies and events that shape the individuals. How were the individual produced? What was happening? What was their own ideology? And I'm talking about intellectual history.
Correct.
What was the person contribute towards policies and issues of their time? And how did they impact on that period and afterwards? So these are some of the things history sought to do. So history is not just about looking at the past and then the present. It is also all the workings and all the processes and how it produced the outcome, and the way we will use the outcome to also work for the future. Absolutely. So that we don't commit the same mistake.
Absolutely.
And that is very critical for historians. And that is the kind of history we do today, rather than just recounting of the events, mentioning names of the dates. That is not history.
Of course.
That is the basic, okay? So history have many strands. So, for instance, like you said, we have produced presidents. Over the years, how have psychologists looked at the psychological makeup of the presidents we've produced over the years?
Absolutely.
How was their psychological stresses when they are under pressure from certain economic outcomes from the global north and so on? How are they under pressure? How did they react? What were the local initiatives that they were able to produce? Or they have always relied on the global north, that is the Bretton Woods institution, to counter some of these outcomes.
Absolutely.
We need psychologists, for instance, to look into the minds and look at our leadership, so that even before a person become a president, Ghanaians know the psychological makeup of that individual. And that is how history has moved into the area of psychology.
Correct.
Social history, how have been the social organization of the people? What are the changes and continuities in the settlement patterns of the people that have really shaped the way they live today and so on?
Indeed.
We are not doing that so often. Economic policies, how has Nkrumah's policies from its impact of the time, when the mistakes that Nkrumah did, what were the preceding leadership, what did they contribute to correct it, or they've continued to commit the same mistakes up till today? So me, for example, like the question you ask, if you take Nkrumah's economic policy of industrialization,
correct,
which he was the best to have the highest back of almost 26% in
correct,
terms of growth in industrialization.
Indeed.
And he created, between the period of 1960 to 1966, you have a man who created about 22 factories, okay, correct, all over the place. By 1964, out of the 22 factories, only 2 were being productive. And studies have shown that this was as a result of, during the period when there's external effects around that time, the prices of cocoa and what have that have impact of the economy.
Yes.
That notwithstanding, the internal problems that was also identified was how the CPP members really filled with these factories with their members, even when they don't have the technical know-how or knowledge systems to operate there. Have we looked at how that policy failed in terms of the factories and how it is still being continued under various governments after Nkrumah? Why we still criticize Nkrumah for not doing well within that time? So as a historian, these are some of the things that we need to look at from the economic history point of view, from the political history point of view. So back to the original question you asked on the political party system.
The question, we'll deal with it after the break, but when we come back, I remember when I was studying for my PhD, I went for a conference in Vietnam, and I was told that history itself is an excellent methodology tool, and that there are things like historiography, whether can be applied to marketing. So there's a way in which you must understand marketing events beyond a certain time. I remember I came back, I tried to talk to some people about the methodology. Till today, I haven't got any feedback. We'll be right back with Titans and Trailblazers.
Finding the ideal property shouldn't be a daunting task. With MNC Properties, property sales, rentals, and management is a walk in the park. We believe everyone deserves a place to call home. That's why we specialize in providing affordable housing options under our flagship project, Fresh Property Joy, specifically designed for low and medium income earners. Our range of customizable homes includes 2 to 3 bedroom standard and executive options, all meticulously crafted using innovative interlocking brick technology. We offer flexible payment options tailored to your individual needs, plus litigation-free lands in vibrant and upscale communities that presents the perfect opportunity to build your dream home. We are committed to making affordable housing a reality. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or invest, we've got you covered. Our service team is ready to assist you on 0302 551 917. MNC Properties, choice of class.
Divine Yao Aijwe is my name. I'm the director in charge of research, statistics, information management of the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy, and Religious Affairs. As we await the big announcement in May 2025 of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama on the need for National Sanitation Day and sustaining the process, we are hoping that Ghanaians together will help clean our homes and our environments for a better future for this country. Also preventing cholera and attracting the best tourist attraction to our beaches, because as I pass by, the deep blue sea is becoming brown. And as I travel to Lusaka, Zambia, I travel to Cote d'Ivoire, Abidjan, I travel to Abuja, Nigeria, I travel to Nairobi, Kenya, we can do better as Ghanaians. We need to clean our environment so that we can also attract the best tourists to our beaches and earn some currency to improve our economy for the years to come. I hope that this call is a call to duty that will help cleaning our homes and then to our communities and to our cities and the whole country. I hope that this call will be heeded to help our country look better in the community of nations. Thank you.
Welcome back to Titans and Trailblazers. We're speaking about our political history and trying to understand the dominant traditions, whether it's Dankwa Buzia and Nkrumah or maybe even a third Rawlings tradition, and what was then, what is now, and what the parallels or the dissimilarities could be. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, so from the very beginning, we have certain political parties from the very beginning. As I said, Aboriginal Representation Society was non-political, but for the intellectuals. And then by 1924, going in, as a result of Municipal Corporation Bill, which introduced the sort of election for the Gold Coast was divided into three. That is the Western, Eastern, and then Central Province. So within this the system of provincial system, they came out with a sort of elections, and in so doing, political parties were founded. So in Accra, we have the Accra Ratepayers Association, and then we have the Gamambi Party. Gamambi Party was founded by Kojo Thompson. His name is Kojo Thompson Road.
Oh, okay.
That's the man.
Yes.
And then the Ratepayers Association was by Dr. Frederick Nanka Bruce. In fact, the Gold Coast newspaper described him the most best dressed man in the Gold Coast. He was a medical doctor.
With flowers.
And so, yeah, with the flower always stuck to in upper left of his yeah, that's the man. And then you also, out of the Gamambi, there was a division. So you have Asre Kowulu Party, which by Kote Papa Fiu, he was a lawyer.
Yeah.
So these parties were then, they were contesting for the Accra elections. And when they contested, John Glover Ado became the first legislative council member for Greater Accra. Then you go to Sekeni Takrade, Kesiri Hayford contested and he won as the first member. Correct. In Cape Coast, they refused to contest the election, saying that they are not interested in any British continuation of the indirect. They should go back home and independence should be declared.
Of course.
How, as a result, the whole 1927, they didn't have representation in the Gold Coast. So in 1928, they went to beg them, the governor, and the election was done, and Dr. Kobina Akukosan, who will later become our first Ghanaian Chief Justice, became the first member of the Legislative Council for Cape Coast in 1928. So from that period, those were the political pressure groups that we know, in addition to National Congress for British West Africa, founded by Kesiri Hayford himself. By later on, when Danko came in from 27 going, he came with Gold Coast Youth Conferences, which he organized with the intellectuals, and they continued to critique the British colonial policies that they rule out year after year.
Correct.
And so on until 1947,
yes,
Dankwa and his friends and founded the United Gold Coast Convention, yes, on 4th August at Sopon and so on. So then Nkrumah was late, when the movement was going, Nkrumah was later invited in, And then he had coming to join as a general secretary when JC, the Graf Johnson, says he is no longer interested. He came in, and as we all know, there was a schism between them. And then Nkrumah fell out and went to also have his Convention People's Party.
Yes.
And then those were the political traditions that emerged, the UGCC, and then, how do you call it, the CPP. Again, the intellectuals of Accra also came together to form a party out of the Gamma B party, and they called that new party KUHE. That is New Party. And the English name was National Democratic Party, NDP. And these three parties became the tradition that contested the 1951 elections. And Nkrumah was leading the CPP, Dankwa was leading the UGCC, and Frederick Nanka Bruce was also leading the KUHE party or the NDP. And people often call them the Domus because of their name back in the day. And they, during the election, after the 51 elections, CPP came out strong. They won. Nkrumah himself became the leader of government business and the prime minister. As a result, UGCC got divided into three political parties. Ghana Action Party, which was founded by Dr. Kumi Ansakwe of Equiapiam. Then you have Ghana Congress Party, founded by Dr. Kofi Ebrifebuzia, and then Ghana National Party, founded by Emmanuel Odakwe Obechebelamte. So these were the three parties that were born out of the UGCC tradition. So the UGCC by 1952 to 54, by 52 after the election, it was dead. And the new political traditions were born out of it. You see, and from there too, we have a party, another party from Volta region by Modesto Apalu called the Ewe Youth Organization. Angola Youth Organization, AYO. Okay. Then also we have the Togoland Congress by SG Anto, who was also leading his own. Then the Muslims in Ghana also founded their political party, which is Muslims Association Party. And then the people of the northern region, because in the 51 elections, no political parties were to go to the north and campaign. They were to represent their communities and the traditional areas. So that people who came to represent their leadership formed a party called Northern People's Party, the MPP of the time. So these were the political tradition that emerged by 54. And when they went to election again, CPP won. And these political parties, the UGCC and co, they all died, leaving the AYO, the Muslim Association Party, as well as the Togoland Congress. And because of that, the new political movement emerged in Ashanti from 55, which is the National Liberation Movement.
NLM.
People call it Matemeho later. So when they came, it started first as ethno-nationalist sort of a political organization. However, when the UGCC tradition having died and having been decimated, they didn't have any home. So when they saw the agitation from the Ashanti by Bafo Seakoto, then Buzia Olenu and all those people moved away and they went to join the NLM, thereby transitioning the party from its ethnic base in Ashanti to become a nationalist party.
Indeed.
Because in Cape Coast, Ambassadors will join, Sakishek will join from Sekendita Grade, and several others, and as a result, it became a national party.
From Kawano.
So those people all joined, and then NLM became the new political tradition of the UGCC. So UGCC, when people say Dankwa Buzia tradition, by 1954, because Dankwa was outside, he has lost election in 54. He won the 51 election. Buzia, on the other hand, has lost the 51 election. But Dr. Isaac Boaton Asafaji loaned his seat to him to enter parliament. In those days, he can give you a seat to somebody who want to represent you. So he was given from the Asanteban Council seat. He gave you to Buzia, who has lost the Wenchi seat. Yeah, okay. So Buzia entered in 52 via that arrangement. In 54, Dankwa lost his seat at Acham. So as a result, he was no longer in the political system again. By 56, he contested and he lost again. So the NLM that will later emerge as the home grounds of the people of the UGCC, then the three other ones that got also decimated in the 54 elections. So they have all found home in the NLM. And then when they were in the NLM, after the elections, Nkrumah won again, and then he became a president. Then he came with the Avoidance of Discrimination Act, which stated that parties must not be found on ethnic grounds, religion, and secular, and so on. So all the political parties must be nationalistic in outlook. And as a result, even before the passage of the Avoidance of Discrimination Act, a united party, UP, was born. So all the splintered political parties, Muslim Association Party, Northern People's Party, NLM, AYO, all of them came together. And then they formed the United Party as a common opposition against the CPP.
Okay.
So that is why we call it a United Party tradition. Sometimes there's a contestation. Is it Dan Kwabuzia and so on? When the Dombo come in. So people need to look at the historical tradition. And that is how we met as a United Party. And then when Nkrumah was overthrown, the new election in 1962, you have the Progress Party, which was a child of the UP tradition, which Buzia led, and he won the election in 1969. CPP was banned, and it became scattered. In fact, under the constitution, even when you use the name convention or peoples, that party will be banned. And there were people who formed party with that name, and they banned from contesting any election under the constitution of 1969. As a result, the only party that was claiming a very close semblance to the CPP tradition was NAL, National Alliance of Liberal, led by Komala Abole-Bodema. Bodema himself winning election will lose as a result of some committee of inquiry report that went against him. Correct. And he will lose his seat, and therefore pave way for Dr. Putufe Agama to become the leader of the opposition in parliament from 1969 to 1972 until Achampong coup d'etat came to derail the democratic process of the period. And then we've been in the democracy, the military regime all the way to 1979 until Rawlings did the coup d'etat and the election was run. And there we saw the coming back of these old political parties, where the CPP tradition came up as People National Party, led by Dr. Hilary Imam. And then the UP tradition also founded the Popular Front Party, which was led by Victor Owusu.
Yes.
Victor Owusu. So Victor Owusu came in, and then there was a division, which will later lead to United Convention Party, which is UNC, led by Pauli and his followers. So that is how the 1969 election, as a result of contestation between leadership of the PP. The reason why that division came was that some people felt that under the PP, the accounts had uppermost hand, and there was no distribution of power very well.
Indeed.
So this led to people who believed that Pauli has a nationalistic angle because of his role. And they lost the election. When they lost the election, Pauli became the leader, the chairman of the Council of State in 1979. And Rawlings came with the school. We went back to 1992, and then new political parties were founded. And the people from the UP tradition will then came back and then found the New Patriotic Party.
Okay.
And then the Nkrumah's group will come with their CPP and others. And then, how do you call it, NDC, which is today claiming has become a home to most of the CPP elements, has also now can be said to be a party representing in a way of Nkrumah too in their ideology. Okay. Particularly even the political ideology they've taken as social democrats and so on.
Okay. But Nkrumah was famous for industrialization.
Yeah.
That you can't take from him.
Yeah.
And today we want industrialization again. So is it more of the same, or are there new ways of industrializing today from an economic history standpoint?
Yeah, so the industrialization, you need money. So Nkrumah, most of his idea was the idea of producing what we eat, and what we cannot, we can eat.
Okay.
So that was the idea of Nkrumah. So it was anchored on import substitution, What he did was that some of the things that we can produce, instead of allowing the foreign companies to produce, if we can produce it ourselves, and if we, after producing it here.
But there are battles around that today, because some people say, for instance, from Guta, that even things that are legislated by law to be preserved for locals, foreigners are here and they are dealing in those things. I don't know whether that's
yes, and that was what Nkrumah seek to avoid during the period.
Okay.
So he led the state. So the state was was spearheading the development agenda around that time. So he was able to deal with the private sector, even though opportunity was given to the private sector, but more emphasis was given to the state-sponsored companies and others. And that was why he was able to really stand against the foreign invasion. And it goes to the undergate Nkrumah's idea when you read Consciencism, his idea of neo-colonialism. If you give it to the private sector, he was scared that it will serve as an avenue for the global multinationals to emerge and swallow the local entrepreneurs who did not have needed assistance. And then it goes back to the very thing that he was fighting against.
Tell us about radical Christianity. When did it start?
So radical Christianity emerged from the Methodist Church in the Anamabu, where the church was about the idea that if you're an African, you cannot take a second wife, you cannot belong to Asafu group, you cannot belong to your local associations. And so they see it as Heathenism. And the intellectuals of the time, led by Reverend Parker, A.W. Parker, J.B. Anaman, and so on, they came together. This is wrong, and that you cannot do so. The African have his own culture, and the culture and religion itself is the extension or the deification of one's culture. So if that is the case, then the ideals of Christianity, they will imbibe it, but allow the people to also practice their own culture. And this led to the division of the church. So many other European members who were not in agreement, some of them were chased away from the church, and they continued to do their own African way of doing things. This will culminate later in what we call the Infantile and Membufuku and Gonfanti movement. People trying to go back to return to nativity, do the way they do their own things before the Europeans came. So we see the Bible being translated into the Fanti language and other Akan language. The Fantis coming out with their own Ebibenjom. Now the use of drums, which were all banned by the church.
But now there's an extension to charismatism, which in the last 40 years has become a predominant Christian tradition, not just in Ghana, but in Africa as well.
That was the formative stage, how those people started and fought for that right. So most charismatics today, when they look at churches like 12 apostles, when they look at churches like Negration, they look at Odifun Cancer, Mozambique Disco Christo Church and others, and they look down upon them. What they forget is that they are existing today because of the fight that was started by those people, which has given them opportunity for them today to wear their own African dress, to beat the African drums, to sing their own song. Because back in the day, in the 1880s to the 90s, if you do so, you will be chased away from the church.
Close now. So give me 2 pieces of advice for African youth in order to build a better future for themselves. Number 1.
So for the African youth, I think the partisanship is too much in our country. People don't know the difference between loyalty to the state and loyalty to their parties. For many young people today, they will rather support their party than to support the state. Because at the end of the day, they believe that it is only when their party win, that is when they will get jobs, and not their own capability. So you are in university, you know what happens at our university campus. Back in the day, people are learning seriously because they know that their academic capabilities and knowledge will be what will give them job. Today, some people go to university, they don't actually do the learning, they engage much in politics, and they form the political association. So as soon as their party win, they bring the list of their names and they push them in place, and that is what is undermining our public services. That is undermining our business and governance structure, and people are not looking at it critically. This need to be historicized. How did this happen? So the idea of loyalty or nationalism or patriotism is no longer there. Look, back in the stars, you know, if a child is moving and Ghana National is being played, Ghana national anthem is being played, you will stand there and put the hand on the chest and begin to sing along as a way of patriotism. So these things have been eroded. Political party systems have destroyed the fabric of our cohesive social systems, as well as the idea of governing the state.
Less partisanship, better work ethic.
Better, absolutely.
Fantastic.
We do not have that in our system.
Fantastic.
In fact, all our problem is as a result of that. And the leadership, the way also what I see is also the lies being perpetuated, as if today, how do people make it? Back in the day, when we say someone is a man who have made it, we know how he started, the jobs he did. Suddenly people go to politics, they make the money, and they are telling people this is the way to go. So everybody now has seen that, apart from the few people who have become billionaires and they are telling us what they did, majority of people who have made it in our country, all their resources are product of the Ghanaian state.
That's right.
They didn't make it out of their own. They will lie to you that I have found this bank, I have done this. So when you trace back to their history, you realize that every money and finances that made the organization that they are heading, it's the product of the state because of their belongingness to a political tradition.
Okay. On that note, to African youth that work hard and fight for your own future, we want to thank you for watching this edition of Titans and Trailblazers. We'll come to you again very soon with another episode. Stay tuned.
Titans and Trailblazers is brought to you by the MNC Group.